We're good? All right. Welcome everyone to our Veterans Day School Board meeting. And as we begin our meeting, I would like to call on the veterans in our group on the board to lead the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Ahern, Ms. Gardner, and Mr. Paul.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks to all of you for your service and for all of you out there in the community who have served as well, who have loved ones who've served. Thank you so much. All right, with that, we have the opportunity for public comment specific to the agenda for this evening. Do we have any public comments? No? All right, you will have another opportunity later in the meeting. We also have before us a consent agenda. I would entertain a motion to approve.
So moved. Support.
Tony and Jessica, any comments or questions? Hearing none. Joanne, would you do roll call, please?
Mike?
Yes.
Alicia?
Yes.
Tony?
Yes.
Chuck?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Jessica? Yes. And Carrie?
Yes.
7 yeses.
Thank you. Motion passes. All right, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Meinke for his superintendent report.
Thank you very much. I would like to start with just a real bright spot. We have a lot of things to be thankful for as we get closer to Thanksgiving here in the next couple weeks. And I just would like to share with this board and the community, we had a person who was recently just recognized by the Genesee County Prevention Coalition. And her name is Mrs. Melissa Titsworth. I know many of you know Mrs. Titsworth. She's the assistant principal at the middle school. She was awarded this award and she was nominated by Mrs. Ahern. And I want to read you just a little bit of her nomination letter that I thought was great. It talks a lot about her dedication to students, but there's a couple lines that stood out to me. One of them was, she uses an iron fist and a velvet glove. Melissa always has a smile and respects everyone, appreciating who they are and understanding where they come from. One of the other things that's been great about Mrs. Titsworth and written here in the nomination, Mrs. Titsworth works very hard for some of our students who are under the driving age and parents who have transportation issues. She's been absolutely instrumental in bringing about many of our countywide programs. Some of those programs have been the GISD's CHILL program, helping students with violence in their lives. The Botvin program, teaching students to deal with peer pressure, developing confidence within themselves and self-esteem, and the Prime for Life program to challenge our students with attitudes towards drugs, alcohol, and cultural differences. Mrs. Titsworth has done an amazing job, and the fact that she was awarded the Genesee County Prevention Coalition's Partner Award is just a real bright spot for our district, but it's a great way that she is honored, and I think we, if you see her, give her just a thank you, because she does a lot of work and doesn't always get recognized, and the work that she's doing at the middle school is absolutely fantastic. So thank you, Mrs. Titsworth, for all that you do. And I also wanted to, as I have a few things to report on tonight, I know we're going to talk a little bit about our extended continuity of learning plan. We're going to talk about the data and the things that we're facing relative to COVID-19. But I also wanted to say that it's been a good year in spite of everything. We know that cases are going up and there's things to consider, but in spite of all the challenges, our staff have exhibited a tremendous amount of grit and perseverance. One of the things that you probably saw a couple weeks ago, I sent out a staff survey. And really what I'm trying to determine is, there are some things we need to do to try and support our people. You know, if there's things we can do to make their jobs more manageable, whether it's a technology issue, whether it's ability to get things done and have time to do that, we're trying to remove as many barriers as we can. There's a lot of things that they have to do. So I wanted to share the survey with you. I do have copies. This is kind of the raw data. The first page is a summary page that has the results. The next couple pages, or next few pages, are kind of the raw data. And I want to be able to share this with you as a board. And so we'll do this from time to time as we conduct these surveys. One of the things that I think has become abundantly clear, and we've addressed it right away, was the challenges with Canvas and Google Classroom, and we actually talked about that at our last meeting. And so as we think about how we can address some of those things, the staff were concerned about the fact that the Canvas program has been a challenge in some cases. In some cases they're doing well with it. I think it was the stress of having to pull that all together in a single platform. So we're giving them a little relief. We're going to pull the reins back on that, and we're going to really do an exhaustive study on what the best system is for us. We're going to involve parent stakeholders. We're going to involve a lot of teachers, and we're going to try and get input on what's going to be the best learning management platform for us moving into the future. I don't think that during this pandemic we ever would have thought there would be things that probably were really bright spots that we would want to keep doing. And I think one of the things that we've kind of stumbled into is this concept of offering choice. I think based on the pandemic, there are people who are probably engaging in an online setting that probably need to come back to school. It's difficult to do that during a pandemic, but we are learning a lot about the fact that there are some very bright spots and success stories by offering some choices related to this. So if in the future we're going to do this in maybe a slightly more structured format and a little bit more, we're getting better at it every day, we're going to need to have a learning management system that's consistent, that is, Brendan spoke about this, that many of the students have struggled with. Well, I've got this teacher that's using this, and then this teacher's using that. So as we think about moving into the future, we know that consistency is not only going to be important for our children, but it's going to be important for parents, especially those in the K-5 area where many of the parents are helping make those things possible. So I wanted to share the staff support survey. There's some good data there, and we're appreciative to our staff that participated. We're going to do that again throughout the year. And I think it's just important to try and find out how we can help them, because anytime we can support our people, we know that they're going to be better for our kids, and so that's an important factor. I also want to share some other very positive news. I think Mr. Melke asked at our last meeting about the budget spent to date, and so I have an updated amount at this point. Our grand total of expenditures is $20,173,263. So that gets you, at this point, pretty much up to date. So a little under half of our, bond total at this point. We have some outstanding things to wrap up with site work and things like that, so there'll be some more bills coming through. But I wanted to share something that I think is really important. We have about $8.2 million budgeted for construction costs for the middle school. When we went out to bid earlier this year, unfortunately our bids came in about almost $1.5 million over budget. So, we're sitting there, looking close to $10 million on an $8.2 million budget. And we just took bids. It's a better bidding climate. The timing is better. We're looking to start in the spring. So, it was a painful thing having to wait until the spring to get the project started. But we just took bids in yesterday, and it looks like we'll be able to complete the project with all of the bids that we took for $7.8 million. So we're actually going to be under budget for what we had slated, which is a $2 million swing to the positive direction from our previous bid. There was some value engineering that we did, relative to looking at some efficiencies, namely looking at air conditioning in the buildings. One of the things we did at the elementaries is we chose to air condition every classroom. We did not air condition the hallways, And that seems to be a very good model that many schools are using. And at the middle school, the initial bid that we did, air condition the hallways, that was a big factor. Taking out a few pieces of glass that was not a necessity. So doing some value engineering, but most importantly, we think it was the bidding climate and timing of the bids. So on December 2nd, I'm going to be bringing to you some recommendations from our construction manager about the middle school. And I feel very positive and very happy with the fact that we're going to be able to address the middle school under budget. You know, and so obviously there's some contingency built in for unforeseen circumstances, but to be able to do that for around $7.8 million is fantastic on an $8.2 million budget. So we'll be able to do that. So just real positive. We opened bids yesterday. They're going to be going through the interviews with the contractors, and we will be bringing to you recommendations on our next board meeting on December 2nd. At this time, that is all that I have.
Thank you so much, Ben. Any questions for Ben?
I just want to, I think that's excellent that we've got that $2 million savings. That is, you know, we took a chance on your word, on your thought, and along with the construction managers, and we went for it, and we're saving the community $2 million for this project of the middle school. Wonderful. Yep.
I just have something, Ben. I think this staff survey of information is fantastic. I'd like to return it, and I'd like to request that it be de-identified in the future. I think the information that comes from our staff should be anonymous unless otherwise needed.
Okay.
That's my recommendation.
That's totally fine.
Anything else? Okay. Now we have a student board representative report from Brendan. Brendan?
Hello. So, first I'd like to congratulate the Swartz Creek Dragon varsity football team on making the playoffs. It was a long time coming, and the student body is very proud of the team's achievements, especially during these unprecedented times. In other news, the high school underwent SAT and PSAT testing recently, and the student body is very thankful for having this opportunity to take the test for free, especially the seniors taking the SAT for college. Furthermore, I'd like to call attention to a fundraiser being held by the Swartz Creek High School Student Council. The Stuff to Bus fundraiser will be held on November 21st from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. They will be collecting canned food items for families who are in need during the holidays, and anyone willing to donate can deliver these food items to the cage. In other news, the Swartz Creek chapter of National Honor Society recently held this year's induction ceremony for incoming juniors, and they will be holding their first official meeting tomorrow. And so congratulations to all the members of NHS for their hard work in our community. Thank you for that. And lastly, as many of you are aware and probably have heard of, there is growing concern among the student body regarding the growing cases of COVID-19, not only in our state, but in Genesee County as well. Many students and staff question whether or not we will temporarily be moving to virtual learning, but in all, the student body is welcoming the many challenges that this year has to face, and thank the school board for all of their hard work in making this year as accessible to anyone as possible.
Thanks, Brendan. Any questions for Brendan?
I do.
Go ahead.
NHS, are they lining up any service projects for the community?
Yes, actually we are. It's harder this year because of coronavirus. We also have shifted the rules a little bit this year, and we've modified the way we're looking at service hours this year. For example, we are allowing students to do like things for their family members. If it's like, for example, if you helped your family member like build something in their yard or something like that, we're allowing. Previously, we wouldn't allow that to help family and count that as community service, but seeing as a lot of students have to be home and we have to reduce the amount of exposure we have out in the public, we've allowed more service hours to be counted within the home environment. So that's the biggest things that's happened with service hours. We have a couple service projects lined up and a couple fundraisers as well, which we will be counting for service hours as well.
Excellent. You're being creative then.
Oh, sorry?
Creative.
Thank you.
As far as the service hours.
Thank you.
Good.
Brendan, when was that, you said it was a Stuff the Bus?
Yes, it is November 21st from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m., and anyone willing to donate canned food items can deliver them to the cage during that time.
Is it just canned food or non-perishables?
The flyer says canned food, but I'd assume non-perishable.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thanks for doing that. All right. Moving on, we have board subcommittee reports. Brian, do you want to start with policy?
Yeah, Before I go any further, should I make a statement about the newly elected board members? I'm just happy with what happened, and I want to congratulate formally all the new board members coming on in January.
Thanks, Brian. Appreciate that.
Policy met Monday, 7 o'clock, 7:10, and we had 4 board members, and we had Mr. Micah and Mr. Hetherington. We discussed at length, we've got the first reading of the MSAB Policy Update Volume 34, Number 2. We've got that first reading scheduled today. That's 9A on the agenda. And so we're going to be pretty thorough walking through that. And that's basically all we had no comment, public comment, and we adjourned at 8:24 hours.
Any questions for Brian? Okay, we look forward to the policy review. All right, the Academic Achievement Committee of the Whole met Monday morning as well. We had, Rod shared a lot of information, an update on the MTSS District Fall Meeting, where they actually dig into the data to see how our students are doing related to the various tiers. And the group includes Rod, Katie Preer, Kevin Claren, Sandy Cook, and Becky Trent, and I'm sure there are others I may have missed. Can you hear me okay? Yep, okay. Seems like it's not going out. So what they're finding is that there's significant opportunities within some of the tiers. The tier 1, Rod, correct me if I'm wrong, but tier 1 looked to be pretty stable. Tier 2 and 3, there were some opportunities for improvement.
Right. Tier 1 is just basically your program for everyone. And kids who were with us face-to-face did better than expected. But yes, there's a lot of opportunities for intervention, especially in the different modalities.
Okay. And with regard to the STARS data, they are assessing the results during the pandemic and between the modalities. They are looking at what they're calling SOCs, or students of concern. They're looking at students to evaluate how to get them help. If as Mr. Meinke mentioned, they're not engaging or they haven't been able to connect with the students, they're looking at challenges related to students who aren't logging in or completing assignments, and what are the options to then address their engagement. There's also work at a team level for assessing social emotional learning and the impact of the trauma or the impact of COVID pandemic on students. They're also looking at the reading TFI and PBIS, SWIS, I guess that's Swiss. They're assessing how well interventions are being implemented and if they're working. And in the second semester, Ben did mention that there'll be a modality survey that goes out to parents next week. Watch for that in your emails. And parents will be asked to complete the survey to select their second semester learning modality for their children. From a technology standpoint, for virtual, we did talk a little bit about a grant that has been received that will allow purchase of additional technology, which is great news for the district. And then with regard to Canvas versus Google versus Schoology, there'll be a lot of review and assessment on what's the best option for everyone to be able to use, and in the meantime allowing teachers to use Canvas or Google Classroom. With regard to the professional development tracking for the district that's required for teachers and administrators, Kevin Claren is going to take on that role to keep track of clock hours for the professional development. There was no public comment, and that's it. Any questions? All right. Mike, for finance.
Okay. Finance Committee met on Monday at 9:03 a.m. The cash and investment summary report was received and reviewed and is on the website for your review, and I believe you got a copy in your packet. We had discussion regarding Chuck's request from last month on the bond funds, which Ben has already reported on. Pending bids were discussed. The middle school renovation bids are due They were open yesterday, as Ben mentioned. Pending bids, we have window treatments for the elementary schools and the pool repair bids. The check register has been reviewed and the following noted: general fund, 186 checks in the amount of $494,650.75. Payroll, 24 checks, $3,208,920.65. Food service, 11 checks in the amount of $249,089.01. Student account funds, 11 checks, $7,141.46. Debt fund, 2 checks in the amount of $2,275,653.72. Bond, 10 checks in the amount of $3,665,208.19. We had discussion regarding check number 268,245 in the amount of $26,000. $10,000 was for the installation of a block wall at the athletic field, and $15,000 for guardrail installation on the south side of the bus lot. Last month, $15,500 of check 268130 was for the guardrail on the north side of the bus lot. Quotes were received for both projects. The architects did not include these projects in the original athletic field bid. The next meeting is November the 30th at 9 a.m. There were no public comments, and we adjourned at 9:06 a.m.
Thanks, Mike. Any questions for Mike? Okay. Chuck, do you have building in sight?
Yes, building in sight. We met on November 9th, 2020 at the PAC Center in the lobby. The start time was 4:08 p.m. Present was myself, Chris Gray, Tony, Brian, Ben, Mike Ahern, and RC, the maintenance supervisor. First agenda item was the sinking fund plans for the cage recommendation. Ben would like the board to discuss and consider paying off the cage early, as there seems to be sufficient funds in this budget, and that would be in the sinking fund budget. I think there was about 1.6 million in there currently, but I'm looking on the finance sheet and I didn't see it on there, so I don't know.
There's about 600,000 in there right now. 1.6 is the amount we do bring in each year, though.
Right, so that's what we'll have by the end of June.
Yes, that's
Great,
correct.
okay. So I guess that's going to be brought up to discussion at some point for the full board. The next agenda item was the pest control bids. The district is currently looking as a preventative thing at pest control companies to keep pests and rodents away from the school buildings as the weather gets colder. It's more of a preventative measure for all the school buildings. This is due this year to the fact that all students due to COVID are eating in the classrooms, and food debris is more prevalent in the classrooms. It is being cleared daily, but with the cold weather coming, there is a potential of mice, et cetera, and so they're looking at doing some proactive preventative maintenance there if some mice get in. I think 2 bids went out. I don't recall the bids, but they went out.
Yeah, we had a bid for the blinds, and then we also had the middle school bids that were hanging out there.
Okay. The next one was a custodial rate update. Admin would like a potential of a $71,000 increase for custodial staff in these line items for personnel costs, if needed. The proposal is to raise the supervisor's wages from $12 an hour to roughly $14 an hour, and the line custodial staff workers go from $10.75 to $13.50 an hour. It should be included in your packet. I think there was a cost breakdown on the way it would be presented. This will help and attract and retain more employees. We've had a hard time hiring custodial staff, and this cost is in line with other districts. We're a little bit lower than other districts currently. And this, some people may be concerned, but this would most likely would have been raised anyways with the old contract with the private company that we had doing it, because they raised all their rates this year, even though we would have been in contract. So that money is nothing to be, like we made a mistake or anything on the custodial bid. That's just the way it is right now with business. Next thing was window treatment. Window treatments must be added to some of the district buildings. I believe it was Deke, Elms, and Morrish. This will be covered underneath the bond millage. monies. RC expects this to be between $35,000 and $40,000, and it is coming from the bond money. Next agenda item, which we have, I believe, discussion on 10B, is for student bus drivers. The board has to address, see enclosed packet for discussion at this meeting, the increase in budgeting for bus drivers. The district is having a hard time also filling bus openings. There will be a slightly more cost of approximately $12,000 to $16,000 a year if it keeps going the way it is for every 2 bus drivers that the district is utilizing for first student, which appears to be about the average per week as projected. And we have the option of hiring some of these people. I'll let Ben discuss that when it comes to that line item. The pool and aquatics, per RC, the DEQ has approved all the necessary paperwork for the pool. The companies are currently bidding them and will be coming to the district in the next several days to re-inspect and rebuild all the repairs that are needed, and these will be presented in early December and brought to the board for inspection and approval if the board so chooses. Potholes, there were many complaints on potholes in the district and all the buildings. RC had contacted the lawn care company to fill them. The costs is included in the financial report. RC say that it was done at a reduced rate. However, Mike Ahern and myself had concerns that the billing be set out separately and not in the general lawn care, because sometimes he gets a lump sum check and we can't figure out what he's actually doing for other jobs that he's being paid to do. Chris Gray stated that she could and would attempt to separate these bills and itemize them in the future for finances and us. Preventive maintenance update, RC is requesting a maintenance technician to start servicing all the new air units and other preventive maintenance duties. So this could free up the skilled certified technicians to do the heavier repairs. This will be brought up to the general meeting for discussion. Chris stated there is some latitude for this in the personnel line items within the budget. I see I spelled that, a couple of these here, no typos. And that was it. There was no public comment. We adjourned at 5:44 p.m.
Thanks, Chuck. Any questions for Chuck?
I just had a comment, one comment. Tonight, between meetings, I drove around the west side of the middle school. That whole gravel drive that goes from the middle school from the north to the south was all fresh gravel, and it was all graded so nicely. And all those potholes that were back there by the tennis court was all filled in. And I'll tell you, that was quick action. I don't know if we did the gravel, but we certainly did the potholes, and it was nice, very, very nice.
Who did the gravel? Do you know?
We have guys that can grade.
Oh, okay.
And so, yeah, we get out there, and when it gets pretty bumpy, it's important to do that.
Did RC do it with his crew?
Yes.
Oh, it was beautiful, though.
At some point, we'll probably need to talk about that drive. I don't know, depending at the end of the bond, if there's going to be funds available or for prioritized projects. You know, we will know in another year or two. But that drive has always been a concern. You know, I know community members and other people have felt. So it may not be at the top of the board's priority list, but it's at least worth a discussion.
I think we had discussion about blacktopping it if we had the funds.
Yep.
I think we probably had a couple billion. Thank you.
Okay, all right. Moving on to board discussion items, we have the first reading for our Neola policies from February 2020.
All righty, you have, as you probably recall, this is our first time doing policy updates, which, you know, we got a little bit behind with the pandemic, but as you recall, typically a policy update, we do 2 readings, and then we have a third, which is a final read, and then an approval. This first read is basically to make you aware of the policies. They're fairly self-explanatory. There's a summary page in the first part of the packet that kind of goes through and at a high level, you know, these are kind of a summary of what each of the policies are addressing. Again, many of these policies, if not most all of these policies, are revised. There is a new policy, and anytime there's a new policy, I think it's important for, you know, the board to review those. That is policy 5335. It deals with the care of students with chronic health conditions, and essentially this is going to have an impact on 504s and things like that. So I'm going to be working with Mr. Bouchon and several other people to look at recommendations for this, as well as meeting with our Neola representative. One thing that did come up in our conversations, you know, I think it's worth a discussion today just to kind of see what the board's temperature is on it. There has been no pun intended, right? There has been a conversation internally about Swartz Creek does not currently have an on-staff nurse. This is an area where I think we could take a step forward. There are many districts that have health professionals employed by the district. We're in the midst of a pandemic, and so there's obviously an immediate need, but we also have safety plans. We have situations oftentimes where students that have diabetes or other chronic health conditions that may require care. It would be very, very helpful, I think, from a liability standpoint, to have somebody who, is a board-certified nurse on staff. I'm open to whatever your thoughts are on that, but as I get into this policy, as I start thinking about where we're at, and kind of those next steps, I know that that's an area where other districts have, invested a little bit. This would not necessarily be a person that would be providing a ton of direct care. It would be somebody who would be doing a lot of oversight and training primarily. But just as an idea, I don't know if you care to discuss it, but something I might be bringing, up again to in the future. But this policy kind of ties into that, because you're talking about, somebody who could be advising us on Section 504 plans and students with peanut allergies and, a lot of the different things. So we're very fortunate to have a couple people in the medical field on our board. Just as an idea, we did talk about that at our policy committee a little bit as well.
Any comments for Ben?
Would you be talking about one healthcare professional for the whole district?
I think from a budgetary standpoint, that would be where we'd have to start, to kind of look at having one person that would be overseeing a lot of our medical plans, getting to know the students and maybe their primary care physicians to be able to help with EpiPens and some of those students that have those chronic allergies. There are models out there where, say, other districts might have a partnership with a local hospital or a local physician's office where the nurse becomes the liaison between, but then they actually come in and we do a contract with them where they do some support in the school for some direct care. That would be something that would be down the road, so I would say the first foray into that would be one person that we'd be looking at to say, help as a district medical professional, do a lot of training and administration of these types of things.
What's Lisa and Carrie think about it? Are there districts that have nurses currently or healthcare professionals in the district? Any of the districts similar to our size?
Yeah, absolutely. Some districts have multiple nurses, actually. It just kind of depends on the district's makeup. We have not invested in that area very much. Not that we're not compliant. We train our people and we send them out for training. But I think this would be another layer of, stepping forward. So I don't know what to do with you.
Want to go first?
Sure. I think every school should have one. I'm a little biased. I'm a nurse.
We did when we were kids in school. I mean, that was a long time ago.
Sure, yeah. And I had one too. I think one of the things we talked about is this isn't the nurse that wears the white hat and walks around with a tray. This is somebody who's really active and helping with training and kind of leading our healthcare arm of our organization.
Yeah, and I would just add, I think as our future is obviously changing, there's a huge need for appropriate and local and very efficient and available resource. I think it is something that the district should absolutely consider investing in. My only caution would be you're going to very quickly realize you're probably going to need more than one. So I think that would also be just I think you need to have the right people evaluating who that would be for the district and then developing that entire team, because I think there's, I would foresee it being a team of people that can support that overhead medical professional, but then you've got a liaison at each one of the schools with the size and the geography of our district. But yeah, 100% fully support, and unfortunately think it's kind of a shame in our area that that role has gone by the wayside, and we've, not that our unlicensed layperson in the school district is not capable and qualified, but I think there's just a greater need to have actual licensed individuals do some of the things that we've asked others to do. And it's for the safety, not only of our students, but also our staff. So that person can be helpful for both, actually.
And I would echo everything you just said, Alicia. From a health education and wellness standpoint, I think that's a deficit that we have in our district, as other districts do. For the short term, and I'll show my bias, there's a significant opportunity to improve access to immunizations for children, whether that be the routine immunizations. Right now, children in Michigan are behind by 80%, which is remarkable and very concerning from a health standpoint. Flu vaccinations, and of course, parents have to be involved and give permission. But as the COVID vaccine becomes available over this next 6 months or so, there'll have to be a way to deliver that vaccine efficiently to families and to children, and to do it quickly. And so I asked Ben if this person could be organizing health events, including immunizations and those types of things that I remember in 5th grade lining up in the hall to get updates on our, the boosters that we needed. I don't think they do that routinely in schools anymore because they don't have the personnel. And as we go forward, depending on the recommendations of a task force, they may strongly recommend testing of students and staff in schools in order to maintain the face-to-face education. And if that's the case, then you have somebody who would be responsible for organizing those types of activities. So enough said. I guess I would support you, Ben, in that process.
Yeah, and I think the next step would be to do a financial analysis and ask Mrs. Gray to pull something like that together, find out where in our budget that would fall, see what we think a person like that comparatively would cost the district. We have a number of districts in Genesee County that have nurses, so we can have some comparative data, and then that would just be a future topic that I could bring back to the board to discuss in further detail.
Okay, is that it?
Yeah, that's it for me.
Okay.
We will have a second reading coming up at our next board meeting. Again, it's going to be a 3-read type of a situation, so in 2 board meetings we'll actually vote on these. So if you have questions between now and then, feel free to ask.
All right, thanks, Ben. And I would encourage everybody to take a look at these and either submit questions to Ben or make notes on your packet if you need to, so that we can talk about them in December. All right, moving on, the extended continuity of learning plan discussion.
Well, last month I started by sharing some data, and I'm going to do that again today. These are collated, so there's several copies that I can pass down this way. So the data that's in front of you today is a snapshot of our COVID dashboard. Again, I'll start with every time we review this plan, the question is really boiling down to 3 choices. Continue down the trajectory that we're on, look at reducing density in some way or making some adjustments or changes to the plan, or making wholesale changes where we're making large adjustments, large changes. You know, at this time, you can see our numbers. We, to this date, having been in school since September 8th, we have seen the total cases for our students at the elementary school. We have had 1 case in K-5. We have had 3 cases for our middle school. We have had 22 cases at our high school. So clearly our high school students, they're more mobile, they interact differently, they are young adults, and so obviously are making different choices than children in elementary school. The one thing that I would say though, having a student test positive oftentimes means that a large number of children are quarantined, as I've said previously. So we had a couple students this weekend. We got a call from the health department on Saturday. So on Saturday we had to go in and begin contact tracing. We had 2 cases, and from the 2 cases, 84 students had to quarantine. You know, unfortunately for a handful of our students, this is the second, and in very few cases, but some, the 3rd time that they've had to quarantine. You know, and so it's frustrating for the students and the parents when that happens. They have to shift to virtual instruction, which is another challenge for the teachers in how they try and administer that. So I would say that we're doing very well considering the circumstances because, as I've said in the past, everybody's kind of dealing with this in their own way. If you look at the next couple pages, there's some snapshot data. And so there are some case counts and things to look at. I think probably the most concerning graph of all of these, and as I've said before, case counts, I think the media uses that a lot. To me, case counts are not necessarily the metric that should be driving the majority of the decision. If I test a small number of people and I have a few positive cases, okay, and then I test a large number of people, I'm going to assume that I'm going to have more cases. It's just we're testing at a lot higher rate. However, there's a concern, and that is that the positivity rate has been steadily rising since the 9th of October. If you look at that on the second page there. Furthermore, if you look to the health department conversations that we're having across our county, they're feeling as though our hospitals are still very much at a good place in terms of readiness. We have 45% of ventilators available. They have plenty of PPE, but they are noting that the COVID-19 patient intakes are increasing, and they're also noting that the number of adults in the ICU is increasing. Locally, those are the total cases. I thought this was some interesting data for your review. The total cumulative cases by township that are in our district, and then the total of Genesee County that they represent. So you can see a very large difference. Village of Gaines has less than 5 total cases since the pandemic started, but Flint Township has 694. Now, Flint Township, we only serve a small portion of Flint Township, so that can be a little bit misleading, but you'll see kind of our fair share of where the cases are. And the other interesting thing is the Genesee County percentage of cases by age, and then the number of deaths, or the percentage of deceased cases. The 0 to 19 age group, we have not had any deaths from COVID-19. So that's very positive from a standpoint of students and the children that we're serving. Obviously, I think the greater concern is, if the children take something home to grandma, grandpa, parents, things like that. And then the very last side, your page, you're going to see some additional data for the county. You're going to see cases, have eclipsed our April case counts. The positivity rate is on the rise. It has not yet gotten anywhere close to where it was in April, but you can see that data is available. So as you consider our plan, obviously we continue with 3 modalities. Our plan right now and next week, as we talked earlier, we're going to send out a survey to parents. It's really a selection form, and it's going to ask them, are you comfortable continuing in the way, in the learning modality that your child has chosen? Or would you like to make a change? And if so, what would that change be? And we know a little bit more now about how to schedule this. So as I stated earlier, we're getting better and better. And so I think in the second semester, our hope is that we're going to be able to make some adjustments, and we're going to be able to have an even better structure for our staff. But we have a waiting list of children that want to come back to face-to-face. And we, I would say also every day, have a handful of kids that, you know, are seeking, their parents are seeking online instruction for them as they look at case counts and things like that. So once we get the data, we're going to be doing that reshuffling, so to speak, and trying to accommodate everybody. One of the you know, real challenges, of course, is we need to do that soon, because we can't wait until mid-January to make changes and then tell a teacher that may have to make an adjustment in what they're teaching and give them no notice, right? So we need to be able to get ahead of this a little bit. So that's why, you know, we're planning for that now. So our current plan, as enacted, would continue. We would move into the late fall and early winter with some data to make some adjustments before the second semester comes at the middle to end of January. There's a lot of conversations that I get on a daily basis about, so when are we closing down? Because you're seeing schools all across Oakland County. You're seeing schools, you know, north of us that are closing down, they're going virtual. Very large school district to the east of us, not in Genesee County and Oakland County, closed down until mid-January. And so we're naturally getting that conversation, that call. That would be insight that I would need from you as a board if that's a direction that you want to go. At this point, my conversations have been, as long as we can continue in a safe manner, and we are having manageable data, and we're not being advised by medical professionals that we need to close, we do believe that a lot of our students do need to be in school. So, and for those that cannot or should not, based on certain requirements or needs, their parents can choose that online modality. So this kind of a snapshot for you to think about our current plan. We will revisit this again in December. But, you know, it's up for your discussion on, you know, how you'd like us to proceed as a district.
Any questions for Ben?
I guess I got one.
Go ahead, Mike.
Ben, I don't know if you want to discuss this here, but do you want to discuss the idea about the Christmas break?
You know, I certainly can. So one idea that we've had is our staff's working very hard. It's a challenge, and in some cases, and this came from one of our teachers originally, but we've been thinking more about it internally at the central office. And that is that for a lot of our teachers, they haven't seen their families. If they have elderly parents, they may not have seen their families for 6 months, just because they've been in the pandemic. So one of the things that we had talked about is possibly having a two-week virtual period where we would move to virtual for 2 weeks prior to the winter break. And what that would allow for, it would allow for some of our staff to be able to successfully sit out away from people and quarantine themselves, and then possibly be able to go and see their families, and then also have some time to quarantine before coming back and sitting in front of students. So that's an option. It's just something that we've tossed around. It's not necessarily something that would have to be decided right today, but obviously if we would plan for it, that would be more advantageous for our parents if that would be something we would do. And again, I'll be the first to tell you, just like in the event of the high school earlier, if there's an emergency situation where the Genesee County Health Department is advising us that we should reduced density, like when we closed the high school for a week that first time, we certainly are continuing to plan to operate that way if we need to in an emergency. But this would be something a little bit more planned and concerted to try and allow for a little bit of downtime as people gather for that holiday. So just a thought and an idea, if you're interested in discussing that at all too.
I think it's a great idea, and I would think that the sooner the staff knows this may be coming, or is coming, the better they could plan their holiday plans. I personally, I support it.
Are we discussing? I disagree. I think it opens up even more time for people to travel and expose, and the expectation that they would come back and save some time at home to then not bring back whatever you are from a travel. Although I think that sounds great, I don't think it's practical. I'm not disagreeing. I think our staff definitely deserve a break. But at the same time, I don't think our students deserve a break any longer. I think they've had to have breaks. They've been forced to have breaks. And the more time that we can provide in school safely for everybody, I support more.
Ben answered one. I've got three. So the health department, number one, hasn't said anything about any concerns about reducing our density at all, correct? Or
They're starting to, not specifically to Swartz Creek, but at a county level, they are starting to get to that point where they're saying, it's getting the positivity rates going up and those types of things. We just need to be very, very watchful.
okay. So then with that, I guess, do you anticipate as it gets colder, just with that and flu season, that they'll move or suggest that we close the schools, reduce face-to-face or face-to-face?
I don't think that they're going to do that. If that type of recommendation or requirement comes, I think it will come from the state level. The legislature and the governor's office are starting to talk about that. We've been given no indication that that's in fact next week that's happening. But when it first happened, it happened out of the blue so quickly that we couldn't even react to it. So I could tell you something now, and 10 minutes later there could be a press conference called, right? So
Right.
I don't fully know what's going to happen with that, but I don't believe that our local health department is taking the position that they want to advise districts what to do in that area. They will, though, make recommendations based on the data that they're seeing. So, a month or two ago, it's kind of like we have no, if you're choosing to go online or you're choosing to go face-to-face, we feel like with all the precautions in place, you're good to go.
And then with that, as an example, the 2 students this weekend, are we having student-to-student transmission yet that we know of, or no?
In some cases, it's very difficult to tell, but the evidence is almost exclusively that we do not have transmission. The cases that we've come across, including these, were students that, a student had a get-together at a bonfire, or they had obtained it from a sibling or an aunt or uncle. Those are the cases that we have. It's not, so an example would be, of the 2 students that we've been identified this weekend, okay, if the 84 students that were out on quarantine were to start testing positive over the next week, there would be a belief, okay, or a thought that you might have some transmission now because you're seeing that. We're not seeing that. Most all of the time, what we're seeing is a student that gets in contact with somebody outside of school, then the people that they were around, right, in the building, but because everybody's got their mask on and there's all these things that are in place and the traffic patterns of kids, I mean, it's not 100%, we're not 100% able to say that there's absolutely none because it's difficult to tell, but the evidence is very, very little, if any, that there's student transmission in the buildings.
Okay. And then to what Mike brought up, I am in support of those 2 weeks. You know, for our teachers and as a parent who as well has not seen my parents, it would be nice to know that my kids have not been around all of those students if we are able and make the decision to try to go see my family. So it's not just personal, I'm thinking about families that are in a position like mine and our teachers, you know, that in the course of the last couple of months, I have talked to multiple teachers who have said they have elderly parents, and because they're around so many students, it makes them cautious, or they're not able, or they're very concerned about seeing their family. And if we can do something to help mitigate that risk and to help our staff to be able to have some time to help maybe impart to work and recharge with their family, I think that it's something definitely to consider. And the second thing is now that we are allowing both Canvas and Google Classroom to be used, that hopefully we're alleviating some of that stress for our staff and our students to be able to function in those 2 weeks more effectively and efficiently than what they have been. Anyone else?
And I think you know, Alicia's point is a good point in that for the student's perspective, right, they're probably not necessarily going to quarantine before they come back to school. I mean, we can make those recommendations, but that's probably not a realistic, you know. So I think if it would happen, right, it would be more of a kind of a staff support so that they could see their families in those times. But I think there are several good points being made.
Go ahead, Mike.
Has anybody here read this week?
Yeah.
The survey? You been all through it? I don't have my copy that Ben gave me earlier. I wish I had it because I had it all highlighted. And I knew we'd get another copy, so I didn't bring it. My point is, if you read this, you're going to see them teachers and that staff, they're getting overworked and they're tired. And another 2-week break, I think, would be great. Great for the family issue, as Ben said, so maybe they can go see their parents or their grandparents, but also they need a break. And that's another reason that I support that.
For those reasons, I would agree with you, Mike. I do believe that 2-week break time would be great for especially the staff, administration and staff. I would support that, yes.
I have to question, though, if we have the numbers on how many kids are not engaged, not excelling, not doing well, not near where we would want them to be on benchmarks. I want to point out that there's 2 sides to that.
Right.
And I'm not minimizing at all that the staff is definitely overworked. We have that input, but I'd love input from the families that were our converse to that were all the families that needed their kids to be teaching or to be taught and back in school, and the time that they were away from school, and the family strain and all of those things that happen to our families, our communities, and our students. That was all what was happening when we were closed. So we've got 2 edges to this coin, and I think we just need to consider both. My other concern is you take longer off, you come back, you've had more time that they're all exposed anywhere else. What's to say they don't come back and then a week later now we got to shut down because they just brought it all back? It's just, I see both sides, that's all I'm saying.
I would agree with Alicia. I think we stay with the normal calendar. I think the kids really need to be in school. I know some high school kids that have been out and they're upset that they're still out. I don't think they look forward to being out longer.
Ben, can you remind us what proportion of families have chosen what modality so that we would kind of have an idea of how this would affect families?
Yeah, it's not exact, but rough numbers. About 60% are face-to-face. About 30% are online, and about 10% are blended.
Okay.
10% are blended, 30% are the,
Online.
online.
Mm-hmm.
I'm concerned that if they all leave, that they bring it back to school and then we have another outbreak. Kind of what Alicia says, but that's my personal opinion. I think the staff needs a break. I think everybody needs a break in the whole country. But I think we run the risk if everybody's out. Listen, it's like once you let the horse out of the barn, everybody's going to be out doing whatever they want, depending on their individuality. We have no control over that, whether they're working here or not. But I think we risk the school getting more infected, personally. That's my personal opinion on it. It could happen tomorrow, but it could happen when they come back, and then we could be out for 6 weeks. And if we've got a good thing going, your contact tracing, which you're doing now, how much of it's coming from the school or staff? Very little, right? You said that most of this stuff we've traced back to people having parties and social get-togethers.
Correct.
And we may have an increase anyways with social get-togethers, because you're not going to keep people away from Christmas or Thanksgiving. This is a tough one. This is a very double-edged sword or two-faced coin.
It is, and I appreciate each of you kind of weighing in on that. It seems like it's kind of there's obviously not full agreement one way or another. So why don't you let me take the next week or so and brainstorm some additional ways that might accommodate everyone's thoughts here, and then we'll see if we can't come up with maybe some outside the box things that aren't so drastic maybe, and,
Can I ask a question?
and then see if we can't come back with something.
In your report, or academic achievement report, was that we were going to be surveying parents again on their modalities. Can that be an added question? Is a pulse on our community, whether that would be received or not?
Yeah, I mean,
Well
Yeah,
received
would
or
that
not?
go-
I mean, I guess we're hypothesizing what
Right.
we think.
But that would
people
go to
want,
the
and we don't know.
60% though, right, Ben?
no,
would-
it'll go to everybody.
It would go to everybody, but in reality though, if you've got 40% of people out and they all say, oh, absolutely, we want that to happen,
Yeah.
the 60% that are in school are not getting their voice heard.
Yeah.
So I think you should send it out to everybody, but the 60% that currently are in the school, that affects the most. We all agree on that, right?
Sure. No,
So
that's a good point. I think,
And I think it needs to be done quick if you want to do it at
Oh.
Christmas time.
Or to evaluate if any of those other 40 are wanting to come back too, because that's still part of the
Well,
the
10 or, yeah,
consideration.
you may get a few hundred kids that say after Christmas, we've been healthy, we want to get our kids back in school. So that's it, but I don't think it's fair for some people to make a choice for the 60% that are in.
yeah.
So that's just something that, I know it's getting more complicated now when you send out things, because now you're going to have to kind of sift through the
Well,
different.
I think that the healthy debate on this board is always welcomed and encouraged. I don't want to I wasn't bringing this tonight so that you guys would have to take a hard stance and vote tonight. That was not the intention, and I know
I
that
think
there's
it's
not
great you
100%
bring it up.
agreement.
It's food for thought, but we
I-
got to act quick for Christmas, right?
Yeah, but I think there may be some other alternatives that, we've just been discussing. So if you give me a little bit to think through how we can maybe provide some different alternatives, that maybe there'll be more universal support by this board, and then we'll be prepared to say, either yay or nay to that. But I think,
Yeah, get us an email tomorrow morning at 8.
yeah, there you go.
So we can start chewing on it.
Yeah.
But I do think we need to discuss it, the sooner the better, because
Yeah.
it's still just, it affects anybody, so.
Yeah. Yeah, for
And
sure.
we're talking to doing this all Christmas, so we've only really had 1-2 board meetings, right? So, I mean, I'm all for coming in for a special board meeting to accommodate our parents, our children and our staff, but I don't want to do it the last minute and then come up with some plans so we can all,
Yeah, I will.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you, Ben.
but I
Appreciate
respect
that.
everybody's opinion here because I agree, some of the staff probably do need a break and, but I don't want to.
I mean, I think.
Everybody like let them out and then come back and have a.
I think one of the encouraging things for me just sitting here and kind of listening to the dialogue is this board doesn't agree all the time on everything, and that's okay. You know, so that's totally fine. Everybody comes from a different perspective, but I think this is one where we might be able to find something that everybody's can get excited about and get behind. And so we have some ideas. We've been looking at this survey for a week or so and just trying to think of some thoughts on, and so I'll get something to you before the end of the week to start chewing on, and then maybe we can see if there's a need for a special board meeting or if it can wait till December 2nd and then be thinking of it. But in terms of our current plan, we just kind of as a district need to make the decision. When you vote for item 10C, what you're really voting on is to say we want to continue with our current plan as it's stated, you know, and if there's an adjustment that needs to be made to that, now would be the time to discuss if you want to make an adjustment formally, you know, or we're planning to reconfirm what we're doing currently.
Can we reapprove it on 10C, as you stated, and then add the caveat, if somebody wants to add it in there, that you'll come back to us within a few days to potentially have this option for the board to consider?
Yeah, certainly we could do that, or you could just affirm it as it is and, you know, just know that there's an opportunity to make adjustments at any time.
All right, that might be
We
easier.
review this at every meeting.
We
Yeah.
will, yep.
Okay.
Okay, thanks, everybody, appreciate the conversation, too. And I am fully supportive of anything we can do to make our teachers' lives a little easier right now, as well as the families, some of those that are teaching at home, so. Okay, going on to the district technology report. I think we have Travis and Rod.
Do.
Hi there. Thanks for allowing me to come in and do an update. And just want to say I appreciate the board's willingness to
Step up on the stage, man.
provide resources for making this year happen.
I didn't even know where you was coming from.
Boom, I'm right here. So it's been a very interesting year, not only with the bond projects, but then, you know, with the evolution of education and the changing of the guard as far as technology leading the way for, you know, some of these things. So just want to give you an update. We currently have 5 technicians in the district: Will Grant, Zach Witham, Frank Ritz, and Mike Henson. They've all been working very hard all year, and I'm very proud of the work that they've been doing. We have about 950 Windows computers in the district. We're up to about 3,900 Chromebooks in the district. We're at 215 access points. Chuck, did you have a question?
Yeah, how many was it? I'm sorry? I didn't.
3,900 Chromebooks.
3,900.
Yep. 215 access points, 340 phones, 14 servers still, and about 65 switches as far as our core faxes the technology relates to. Some of the recent projects that we've done is running fiber to the press box, the concession stands, and the team room down at the new sports complex. We've recently migrated our school's open finance servers to the GISD, and that's in anticipation to a software upgrade later this school year. We've upgraded PowerSchool database and application server to the most latest versions. We've implemented a new product called Performance Matters that we've been working on for about a year now. That's a new assessment product and data warehousing component that the MTSS team is going to be able to use, so I'm very excited about that. We ran fiber to the cage, so that's on our network now. We wired up all the elementary offices. We installed many cameras throughout the high school, some at the middle school as well. That's an ongoing project. And then we upgraded all the projectors in the elementary buildings to the Casio laser projectors. We've been very happy with those. And then the last bond project we did was upgrade the PA systems at Elms, Moorish, Gaines, and Deke. We just closed those out. Some of the upcoming projects will be to run fiber and install a new data cabinet for the Cyrene office. That's coming up pretty quickly. Finish any loose ends as far as wiring projects, some doors, security cameras, the Cyrene office, and then we want to continue with the cameras as well. We would like to install new UPS, that's a power backup system, in all of our data cabinets. As our data cabinets are becoming more of a lifeline of the network, we're going to be putting more and more devices on there, our alarms on there, our phones are going to go on there. So we just want to make sure that we have a backup solution for that. We will be doing some server upgrades to accommodate for some of the new cameras that we have. We're putting together a RFP right now for PA systems for Cyrene Middle School and High School. I was just kind of waiting to see how the middle school bids would shake out, but it's promising to know that they came in under budget. We're working on an RFP for a phone system replacement. We currently have a phone system that's about 22 years old, so we're definitely due for that. And then we want to provide some network upgrades in the high school gym pretty soon because we're not sure about the status of the fans are going to be for the basketball season. So we just want to make sure that we can provide remote viewing for any fans out there or parents or families. And then we're not doing it, but another big project that's going on in the county right now is that the GISD is looking at an RFP for a new content filter solution. A lot of the pains that we've had this year has been revolving around the iBoss filter and just not being able to keep up with the demands from all the Chromebooks at home coming back into the network. So that's one of the biggest challenges we've had this year. So we're definitely looking into that. Some of the ongoing trainings that we've been doing out throughout the year and continue to do is with that Performance Matters product, Canvas, basic training for Google, Power School, any Web 2.0 apps that are out there, and then recently Kevin's been doing some stuff with the website. We'd like to have our teachers have a small presence on our website. Rod, do you have anything?
Yeah, just so you kind of heard this over and over again now, but just so how some of these play out into the classroom and into learning. You hear us talk about LMS, that is a learning management system. SIS is your student information system, so Power School is our student information system. So we chose Canvas as our LMS to deliver the content. And as you know, we've recently, based on the survey and based on teacher input, have decided to kind of let the teachers use what they're most comfortable with. So we have many people using Google Classroom. We have many teachers who put in a ton of time this summer getting Canvas updated, and so they're using that as well. Canvas has a partner with it. It's a program called Accelerate, and it's content that's already prepackaged. And so the Accelerate content could be 7th grade social studies or 3rd grade math or world history. Pick a subject, and it is content that can be pushed into the Canvas product, and the teachers can use that as part of their online support. So anyone who has an online presence, the 30% that we were talking about, they have access to all of this content that can be delivered through the Canvas site. And as Travis mentioned, we are really excited about Performance Matters. Two big things. Number one, it is a product that connects with Power School, our SIS, and so it allows teachers to create assessments, common assessments, and have students take them. And those assessments can be linked because of its connection right into the gradebook. So if I take a unit test or a common assessment at a grade level, that can all be transmitted right into Power School, right into the gradebook. It can also be done virtually. So there's a lot of great things that can be done with Performance Matters. On the other side of Performance Matters is a data warehousing system. And I've been part of the MTSS team since it was called something that wasn't even MTSS. A long time, 12, 14 years. And we have always been looking for a data warehouse system. And so we're excited. We're going to get training probably in the next couple of weeks where the MTSS team can take all of this scores that you've seen over the last 10 years, STAR and Ames Web and Dibbles, and you can take interventions, so you can track what students have had what all the way up. It can pull in early warning systems, so it can pull in grades, it can pull in attendance, and so we're really excited to get this training and see how that data can all be stored in one spot, and also again connected to Power School. You see staff Chromebooks there. We're excited that every single staff member received a new Chromebook this year, so that's a great thing for them to have, as so many staff members are now mobile, moving from home to school or just totally at home. And then PD, as Carrie said, we have now a new clock hour coordinator, and that's Mr. Claren, and he's been putting everything together so that teachers can track every PD that they're doing. But you know, we started out this summer with our Ed 2020 group, and I don't know, what did we have, Ben? 5, 6, 7 meetings, and just constantly trying to get ready to talk to teachers about what do you need. All of the training that went with Canvas, so much of them put in so much time. It was a lot of teachers teaching teachers, and then we had to develop all of the different plans that you've seen over every board meeting now. And then we had all sorts of training on safety protocols and what it was going to look like in a virtual classroom and what it was going to look like in a blended classroom. And so really just trying to, almost all of our PD, almost all of our time this year has been spent adjusting to the scenario that we find ourselves in with the 3 modalities. We did have a few cohorts who have already gone through the performance matters. The next cohort is going to be on the data warehousing side, and Travis does an amazing job of doing one-on-ones. Travis is always putting out there little group trainings, but he also will just float to the whole district. Hey, if you need something, and we're talking, 500 people, and he will come to your classroom or to your station, wherever you're working, and he will walk you through things. So I was glad to look when he talked about the staffing that we're up to all of 5 people now, because he needs as much support as he can get, because there's just so much work to be done. Everything that we've adjusted to this year is really based on having the availability and the resources in the trainings of technology, because everything we're doing has a technological component. So just even from when he put all the switches in when we first went wireless, I mean, that was the stepping stone to be able to do everything that we're doing right now. So kudos to his team.
Any questions?
If we went, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to ask, I know we've tossed it around a couple times. I don't know what the capabilities or the opportunities we may have, but for extending Wi-Fi access out in the community, if that's being evaluated or any ideas or opportunities there. And then secondly would be smart boards, and how many of those we have, and if we have the ability to add additional, if there's a need or a benefit to having more throughout our district.
Sure, I can answer part of that.
Okay.
As far as in the community, that's been talked about at the county level. I don't think that we would have the capability of doing any like community-based Wi-Fi network, just because of some of the regulations that have come with that, the SIPA protection. But as far as around the district, I think it was a positive experience when we put the access points outside in the high school. Mike used it. We are looking at, on this year for our E-rate, we're back onto our next 5-year cohort for E-rate funding as well. So we're back on that. And I just had a meeting with C-High, our vendor on that yesterday, actually. And I'm looking at, part of E-rate would be to get about 25 outdoor access points, so that way we can expand them around at least the perimeter of our buildings, the recess areas. Parent pickup line's been a big request this year, because a lot of the principals are using technology out there to make sure that they've got the right car or the parent, the student to pick up. So that is definitely on the project. That won't probably happen until the springtime, just because of the way the E-rate works. And I like to use E-rate because we don't have to use any general fund dollars for that. As far as smart boards go, that's a tough one for me to say if it's worth it or not. We definitely have smart boards, probably around 20, 25, I think, in the Title I buildings, which were Elms and Deke. We made a decision at the bond level not to put smart boards in, just because of the longevity of sustaining that is so high cost that it's difficult. I was in a situation in Clio a couple years ago where we couldn't afford to replace the smart boards, and they were able to purchase them with ARRA funds, but after that, it was just very difficult for general fund. And what we found this year is that a lot of people aren't using the smart boards like they would in the past just because they don't want to have multi-touch points and kids coming up and sharing the board. So instead, we did the Casio laser projectors. They have no filter. They don't go dim. They don't have to replace a bulb. So it just made more sense for us to go that route. And then we provide a cart full of Chromebooks in the classroom, so that gives them the interactability or collaboration piece. So I'm not saying that we would never go down the road. I would just be cautious about boxing us into like a $2 million project every 5 years that we'd have to replace.
No, thank you. I appreciate that feedback.
You had a question, Chuck?
My question was, he started talking about the money, and I know a lot of this is grant money. How are we paying for this, Ben? Because I must have missed it in the financial report. Because with all the technical stuff, I know we have a lot of grants coming in for that, and money's been provided, but what's going to maintain this out of our general budget? I'm assuming, which now we're going to have to look into that. So go ahead.
Yeah, for sure. So we had a large number of grant dollars that came in this past year. Right. And they have strings attached to them. And so we're using it obviously as an opportunity to purchase devices, to purchase a lot of the equipment that we've needed to upgrade our Wi-Fi capacity and those types of things. The truth of the matter is that we as a district, so as I can talk about maybe some deficiencies in funding school nurses and things like that, we actually have funded very healthily, and Travis can attest to this, our technology from our general fund. So every time we do a budget presentation and you see that line item for technology, it's healthy. And the reason that it's healthy, and something that Travis can bring to you at a future meeting, is to see we have a technology replacement plan. So he's constantly looking at, okay, here's our usable life of our teachers' computers in this building, this building, this building. Then he looks at the Chromebook carts at different buildings, and they're all on a rotation where they get replaced over a certain amount of time. So the idea is we're not purchasing everything all at once. Now this is a particularly unique year because of the numbers of dollars that came in for this type of support. But now the challenge is fitting that into our system so that we're buying, a couple hundred Chromebooks every year, not trying to buy several thousand every year. And so the truth of the matter is this board has been very committed and generous to technology long before I was here. So I have to say that Swartz Creek has been very blessed and fortunate that a large portion of our general fund from an instructional side is hitting into that technology area. So that hasn't been an issue for Swartz Creek, and that's probably why we're very fortunate, as other districts haven't had the devices we have, because we've been pretty intentional about putting money there.
Would you say we're ahead of most of the districts in the county?
Yes, for sure. And we've made a concerted effort, like I said, long before I've been here. The budget's been pretty healthy. Travis, you've been in a couple districts, maybe give an anecdotal account of our funding levels comparatively.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I was very pleased when I started here that Swartz Creek was committed, the board was committed. There's always been money in the general fund to make upgrades. And I think as far as where we stand as compared to other districts, I think we're very far ahead of a lot of the districts. So another just component of why or how we're able to do this is just the nature of technology the per device cost has come down a lot with the Chromebooks. When I first got hired, we bought 700 iPads, if I remember right. And we're talking $699 a device. We're down to $249 a device for Chromebooks. So that right there alone has dropped it. And especially if you consider back in the day when we were buying laptops for $800-900 and they were only getting 3 or 4 years of use out of them. So the Chromebooks have been a blessing. That's probably the only way that we've been able to make it is just by the low cost point of those and ease of management too. Because if we would have had 3,700 laptops, we'd have to have 10 more staff members.
We purchased about 800 a year ago, I think we approved.
Mm-hmm.
And they were $300 to $400, something like that.
Yep. And these most recent ones are $249 we purchased.
And
we couldn't get the Dell ones this year. Dell wasn't taking any orders.
okay.
One of the other things, Chuck, that we do that is unique to schools is a program called E-Rate. And one of the things that E-rate does is it provides us a 75% reimbursement on our categories that are refundable, and that's a federal subsidy. So basically what that means is we can pay for, say, $100,000 worth of technology equipment, and we're going to get $75,000 back from the federal government in a rebate check. So that's not our entire tech budget, but it is a huge portion of also being able to stay in the E-rate program allows us to be able to recoup some of those costs. So that $75,000 doesn't come in the same budget year, but you know you're going to be getting that rebate the next year, if that makes sense.
It does. Thank
So
you.
Travis, if you have children, multiple children in a home who are all learning virtually or blended, or in the event that the district would have to go to fully virtual for a period of time, does each child have access to a device?
Now we do. At the beginning of the year, before we got our big influx of order, we were limiting that per family, but we do now have
Okay, thank you.
availability for everyone.
Is
Thank
that
you.
why there's so many Chromebooks, at 3,900 to cover our every student and our staff?
Yes, yep. Last year, we were fortunate to, before the backlog and distribution, we bought 215, Chromebooks for the staff, and that was like the best thing we could have done. So that was amazing. And right now we're at 3,700, but half of those, the fleet is out of date. So the rest of the year, we have another order in right now that will be part of the refresh cycle.
And everybody's scrambling to get them, so we're.
Yeah, a lot of people are scrambling.
What are we doing with our old ones? I recall us talking about this about a year ago, and were we selling them, or were they worth nothing at the end of their life cycle?
So far, we haven't sold any just because we've been using them just to cannibalize and fix old ones as we go. It's very expensive to buy the parts used, just like a car, they want to upcharge you. So right now, we've been cannibalizing them. Next year, I have a contact that we'll probably get a quote on. And it's one of the reasons why we quit etching into the Chromebooks, because what I noticed when we got our price back was that they grade them differently. So it's just like anything, they grade that. So now we switched to paint markers, and then hopefully our grade will be a little bit better and we'll get a little bit more money for them.
The school dude program that we just purchased, the board just purchased, are these included in the school dude program? Did RC get with you, or are these going to be?
No, we have our own inventory system, but it could definitely be imported if that's something that, we wanted to do.
Well, I think the school dude program is presented to the board in a sheet, what we talked about the other day at building. And that way we would know that, but I don't know if it's necessary now. You might want to check with RC to see if we could do that, so the board has access to that without having to go through Traverse and just say, hey, we've got this many books and this is what we need, because that's supposed to project out a life expectancy for everything. That was over whatever the amount was we agreed on, I think $500 or $1,000, I don't recall.
Yeah, for sure. So technology has had kind of that ongoing plan and spreadsheet already built. So that's something we could certainly share with you if you wanted to see it. But it's
we've already just to project out our costs every year.
For sure. Yeah.
So thank you so much, Rod, for the instructional update with regard to technology. And Travis, we cannot thank you enough. Your team is wonderful. I know you're very responsive because the community is so grateful to you as well. And I know this has been really a challenging period of time. You don't even look like you've aged 10 years at all.
I feel like it.
But thank you so much for all that you do for our students and
Thank you,
families.
Travis.
Thanks, Rod. Travis.
Travis, thank you.
All right, moving on, we have an approval of an SCEA employment.
I'm going to ask Mr. Bouchon to come up. This is an exciting time for all of us.
Hello, good evening. Thank you for having me. I wanted to take the opportunity. My department within special education has seen its fair challenges, and we've had our staffing kind of coming and going, and had some changes. And with the increase of some of our student population, we were able to talk about redistributing and moving some staff around, and it kind of created an opening. We were fortunate to go through the interview process, not only once with this candidate, but twice. So I'm here tonight to present to the board Katrina Karsten. Katrina had her bachelor's degree from U of M Flint, also her master's degree from U of M Flint. She has worked at St. Pius. She has ran a preschool program. She was a GSRP teacher, preschool teacher. She's got an early childhood endorsement. She's got a learning disability endorsement. She's K-5 certified, social studies, science. Some of the other positives is she's a Swartz Creek graduate. She has 2 of her own children, one daughter at Deke in Mrs. Allison's class, and a first grade son in Terry Ann Harden's class. So I'm hoping that you find the same excitement that I have. I think we have a wonderful candidate that I would like to present to the board, and Mrs. Katrina Karsten.
Hi, well, I appreciate you having me come here. I'm excited to be joining the staff here. I've graduated from here, so it kind of feels a little bit like coming home. I live in the community, and I'm just happy to be here. Thank you.
Anybody have any questions for Katrina?
I forgot to say where she's going to be employed.
It says Deke, right?
Deke Elementary.
Deke Elementary here, yeah.
Special ed.
Sorry, I forgot that.
It's okay.
Well, we're happy to have you here, and if you're lucky, we'll all vote to hire you.
Thank you.
What year did you graduate?
I graduated in '99,
Okay, all right,
so it's been a little bit, but I'm glad to be back in the district.
welcome back.
My children have been going here, and I've been really impressed and happy with how their education has been going, and
Good.
I'm excited to be a part of that education system.
Great. Okay, with that, I would entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
Support.
Mike and Jessica, any comments or questions? Be it resolved that the Swartz Creek Community Schools Board of Education approves the employment of Katrina Karsten for Deke Elementary Special Education as presented. Joanne, do you do roll call, please?
Sure. Brian,
Yes.
Chuck,
Yes.
Carrie,
Yes.
Tony,
Yes.
Jessica,
Yes.
Alicia,
Yes.
and Mike.
Yes.
7 yeses.
Motion passes. Congratulations, Katrina, and welcome aboard. You may leave if you would like. You have little ones at home, so. Thank you so much. Thank you.
We would love to shake your hands
We
another
would.
time.
Normally we would. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Okay, moving on. We have the Student First Bus Driver Contract.
So Mr. Melke talked about this in his report. We talked about this at the Building and Site Committee, and we've actually talked about it a few times at Building and Site. We've had a significant challenge finding bus drivers. We currently have a $2,000 incentive out there for bus drivers who will work for us for 90 days. We really have been actively recruiting. We've had some mild success, but we just have not been able to find drivers, and we had 2 retirements the week before school was beginning. To try and find somebody, get them their CDL license and on-site fingerprinted and ready to go is not possible in 1 week. So I had a contact from the county who were in a different district. They recommended that I reach out to Student First. I called Student First. They've been very professional. They had, I'm sorry, First Student. They had 3 bus drivers on our doorstep within 2 days of talking with them. They're fully licensed. They're fully insured. We've talked with our bargaining unit. It asked me about, hey, our goal and plan is to hire as many of our own drivers as possible. But in the event that we don't have people who are applying or filling the need, we have to look for other means to be able to supply the labor for driving our kids to school. So this contract is there for your consideration. Costs us about $200 a day per driver. That's just a flat rate fee. We don't pay any health care, retirement, or any of those types of things. That is at a higher rate than our own drivers, so you're going to be we wouldn't want to fully staff our bus department, our transportation department with first student drivers, but it's very, very helpful, and it's very flexible, and it's been a great relationship so far. So this is there for your approval this evening.
Ben, if I may, I do have one question. I apologize for not asking it earlier. Are these folks included in the random selection for drug testing?
They are, and they actually, I believe, are getting it twice because they are required to be involved in that from first student as their employer. But they, I believe, are also on our list, and that is an automatic. Even RC, our maintenance director, is in the pool. So if you drive a truck or any district vehicle, you're going to be on the random cycle for drug testing.
All right.
If you have a CDL or a chauffeur's license, that's a Department of Transportation rule.
That's a really good question.
It is. It's a law. It's mandated by law that if you get pulled over, you have to take at least a PBT.
Yeah, okay.
As part of keeping your CDL license.
Gotcha.
Or chauffeurs. Or,
Yep.
Yeah, so I think we're okay, but we all reviewed this at Building and Grounds, and this was a great program, so.
Yeah.
To the rest of the board, we reviewed it, and it looks like a great plan for us, because we don't have bus drivers right now till we can get some. And Ben, I think you should add that one part about we could hire them.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
I really think you should add that. That was a huge benefit
Yeah,
for this contract when we reviewed it.
Absolutely. So there's an option in here. One of the challenges for getting drivers in, if we were to find somebody off the street who had no training, to be able to take them through the CDL classes and get them, which we have done. I mean, we will pay for that. But by the time you take them through that, it's quite an extensive process. In this contract, it allows for us to essentially hire their drivers. It's a $3,000 fee. But it allows us to hire their drivers as our own district drivers. And so in the event that one of them were interested in doing that, or we were to address our wage structure enough that they would be competitively priced enough to come to us, we'd have that in this contract to be able to hire them directly, which would be a really nice feature because it's hard to find.
If they choose to come, and we figured it out, that we would spend $3 grand on the driver to train them and fingerprinting and all that other stuff, and which I'm surprised they would do, on a limited basis, but I think it's a great program. I do back you 100% on this, and I think the building committee did.
Yes, I think we all shared a high recommendation, favorable.
Can we call in for subs through this program?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's one of the big benefits. So historically, because we've never done anything like this in Creek, whenever we've had a bus driver call in sick, we're doubling up runs, which leads to longer times on the bus for kids. This would provide us an opportunity to call, again, if it's the day of, sometimes it's more challenging, but if we call them at 9 o'clock at night and say we have a need for a sub tomorrow, they typically can provide us somebody.
Wow, that's awesome.
That's great.
So,
And one question other, so the board knows, Ben, we've been using 1 to 2 a week. Has
Yes.
that been the average?
yep,
That's why we put that $6,000 to $12,000 increase in there if we continue to use them, unless we find other bus drivers.
that's right.
Right.
Yep.
Okay. With that, I would entertain a motion.
So
So
moved.
moved.
Support.
I'm sorry, I missed. Was that Tony and
Support.
Chuck?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Any comments or questions additional?
Thank
All
you.
right. Be it resolved, the Swartz Creek Community Schools Board of Education approves the student first. I think it's first student.
This says first student.
Yes,
It's first
first
student, sorry.
student. It's okay. Driver contract as presented. Joanne?
Alicia,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Jessica,
Yes.
Tony,
Yes.
Chuck,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
and Carrie.
Yes.
7 yeses.
Thank you. Motion passes. All right, C, we have approval of the reapproval of the 2020-21 extended continuity of learning plan that we talked about earlier. We need a motion.
So moved.
Brian?
Support.
Jessica? Any comments or questions? Be it resolved that the Swartz Creek Community Schools Board of Education approves the reapproval of 2020-21, excuse me, SCCS Extended Continuity of Learning Plan as presented. Joanne?
Tony,
Yes.
Jessica,
Yes.
Alicia,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Carrie,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
and Chuck.
Yes.
7 yeses.
Thank you. Motion passes. All right, and finally, we have the approval of a rollback of employee concessions that we discussed at our last board meeting. I would entertain a motion.
So moved. Support.
Brian, Chuck, any comments or questions?
Just a comment. Thank you for providing the details.
Yeah,
So we can-
thank you for supporting that, and I know that our people in central office will greatly appreciate it, and it does not go unnoticed, the support that they feel, so thank you very much.
Thank you, Ben.
Does this include you, Ben?
Yes.
In here, because last month we talked about it. And
Yep.
So how many employees does this include altogether?
7.
Okay, it's all the admin. Okay.
Okay. Be it resolved that the Swartz Creek Community Schools Board of Education approves the rollback of employee concessions as presented. Joanne?
Mike,
Yes.
Jessica,
Yes.
Alicia,
Yes.
Tony,
Yes.
Chuck,
Yes.
Carrie,
Yes.
and Brian.
Yes.
7 yeses.
Okay, motion passes, and our regards to all of the central office staff.
Thank you very much to all of you. Appreciate it.
Carrie, I'd like to just thank Mike for bringing this forward for all of us to review as well, so thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
Thanks, Mike. Okay, next we have an opportunity for public comment. If you'd like to address the board, please stand, state your name, and keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. And I'm not missing anyone, am I?
Are we really open to the public now? I mean, are we still doing it where they can call in on Zoom? I don't know that answer.
At this point, they're considered open board meetings, so they're posted and we're open to the public. We have a capacity limit of 130 people.
Okay.
So if we were to have a larger crowd than that, and that's why there's a sign-in tape sheet
Right.
at the table.
Then we go Zoom?
We would have the availability to run a live Zoom call
Okay.
if we needed to. Yep.
Thank you.
Mhm.
And Ben, before I forget, I want to thank you for doing the town hall last night with your team.
Thank you.
It was very well done. I think you addressed a lot of questions, anticipated a lot of questions, and I know that the community really appreciates it.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It's hopefully something that the community finds useful. We did have a lot of people tune into the stream. It's an opportunity for people to just ask the questions that they have, and I'm thankful also for the people that not only went on and answered or asked questions, but the other administrators that were there to answer questions as well.
Okay.
I'd like to say a couple things if I can. Number one, yeah, congratulations. Nice job, Travis, on the town hall, and to you, Ben, and the rest of the staff. That was really nice.
Thank you.
And very well done. I'm really glad that we're doing those. I wanted to acknowledge Mrs. Titsworth for her award. That's absolutely fantastic. She's awesome, and congratulate the football team in making it to the second round of the playoffs. And I would also like to acknowledge the Swartz Creek Flushing swim team that just finished up their Metro League meet, and one of our athletes on the team finished first as a Metro diving champion.
Would you like to
Isabella
say that
Lanave.
person's name? Okay.
I'll say Isabella Lanave, because that's what they said. And so anyway, congratulations to that wonderful team. I'm glad they were able to have, like the other sports that were, to have a season. And just wanted to say congratulations.
Any other comments from board members? Go ahead, Alicia, and then Mike.
I've done some personally, but I'd like to just publicly thank any and all of our staff and our teachers, volunteers, coaches, any of the people that are doing above and beyond to give some opportunities for our kids. And then secondly, because I got to participate personally in high school parent-teacher conferences, I was amazed at how smooth that was. And just acknowledge the teachers that have had to adapt to this new structure, new times. You signed up for a phone call, and I thought, who gets a parent off the phone in 15 minutes and can move on to the next one? But they were extremely efficient, called right on my scheduled time, and it was just a testament to our staff. That I want to say, one, that it's available, and we're still doing those kinds of things for parents, but also just how well they actually execute that. To a talker, and they got me off the phone in 15 minutes, so it was good.
Mike?
Yes, I'd like to publicly thank all the voters of the district that got out and voted, both absentee and in face. Turnout was real good, and also would like to thank all the candidates that ran. I don't think we've had 9 run in a long, long time. The turnout and the candidates' numbers were good. I thank them.
Mike, I would echo that, and I would also say I hope that those folks would continue to have interest in serving the community and or the school district. Anybody else? I just want to recognize somebody in the community. Crystal Mata collected over 60 cases of water for schools and had them distributed for kids who don't have water bottles during the day. So thanks to her and to the folks who donated.
Chief, you get them reusable bottles, like, you know.
Well, the children who may not bring a bottle during the day or don't have a bottle.
Oh, I see.
And then we have the water stations, but they don't have anything to go put the water in. So she came up with the idea of having people donate the cases of water and then help distribute them to the different schools so that kids will have them when they need them.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Why don't we expand on it and buy them bottles so they have them so they can reuse them for the water fountain?
Maybe that's something that
I
you could
think
take to the PTOs.
maybe we should do that to help the kids out so they don't have these bottles. And we can buy them a $3 or $4 nice water bottle and you know, come up with some type of plan to give them to them for the kids that don't have the money for them.
It's a great suggestion, Chuck.
That or take it out of our food budget if we could, because like I said, some kids that may not be able to afford it, and I don't know if that's a allocated item, but if not, I'd donate some money, or I think we could get donations for those bottles.
Do we have the capability, Ben, to wash and reuse those on site, or would they still have to take them home to bring them back?
The second that we would assume responsibility for sanitizing and washing them, that would fall under our Safe Serve guidelines. And so it would have to be the situation where we would, if we were to be able to do that, we would give them the water bottle, and then it would be, you know, incumbent on them to bring it to school. So
Give them a water bottle for a couple bucks, and yeah, it's on them to do it, but.
Yeah, well, and I only bring that up because, so it's great that first time you give it, but if it never comes back, then they're still without. So I like the alternative option to have the water bottles on site. So that might be something that we have to look at, what our stock of that is, or how often we provide that.
could be a both and, you know,
Correct.
both
Right.
options,
Yep.
you know, that way you have
Absolutely.
something that they can bring back and,
Yep.
but yeah, I agree, it was a
It was
really
a
great.
nice gesture, very nice gesture.
Outstanding.
And Brendan, thanks so much for letting us know about the Build a Bus option on November 21st. And encourage the community to donate food and non-perishable food goods. And we appreciate that. And I'm going to wish all of you happy Thanksgiving. And with that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Support.
Alicia and Mike, any comments or questions? Hearing none, those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. We'll see you in December.
Looking forward to that Subway deal.
Thank you, Travis. Thanks, everybody.